They were once untouchable. The Shaw brothers, the kings who built Asia's Hollywood from the ground up. Their studio shaped the childhoods of millions, launched legends like Chow Yun-fat and Maggie Cheung, and made Hong Kong the beating heart of entertainment across the continent. For decades, the name Run Run Shaw meant power, prestige, and perfection, a dynasty so rich and feared that even government officials bowed in silence when he entered the room. But within just 10 years, everything collapsed. The lights of TVB, once blazing over every living room in Hong Kong, began to flicker and die. The family that once ruled Asia's screen empire fell into chaos, torn apart by greed, betrayal, and politics. What happened behind closed doors of the world's most powerful media family? How did the dynasty that built Hong Kong's identity become the very symbol of its decline? Tonight, we pull back the curtain on the secret war inside the Shaw Empire, the rise and fall of TVB, and the mysterious forces that turned a billion-dollar dream into dust. This is not just the story of a company's downfall. It's the story of how China's most powerful media dynasty lost everything, and how an entire city's voice was silenced with it. Long before Netflix, before streaming or smartphones, there was one man who decided what millions of people across Asia watched every night: Run Run Shaw. Born in Ningbo, China, in 1907, he began his career selling silent films that his brothers made on borrowed cameras. When the family business, Shaw Brothers Studio, was forced to flee Shanghai during wartime chaos, Run Run turned to a new frontier, Hong Kong. It was here, on a small island struggling to rebuild after World War II, that he would create an empire. In the 1950s and 60s, he bought land in Clearwater Bay and built the legendary Shaw Movie Town, a sprawling 46-acre studio complex equipped with sound stages, costume departments, and film schools. It became the largest privately owned film studio in Asia, and its gates became the entry point for hundreds of young dreamers who would one day become household names. Under his vision, Shaw Brothers produced classics like The Love Eterne, 1963, The 36th Chamber of Shaolin, 1978, and Come Drink With Me, transforming martial arts cinema into global art. But Run Run Shaw wasn't satisfied with conquering the big screen. He wanted to control what every family saw at home. In 1967, he founded Television Broadcast Limited, TVB, Hong Kong's first free-to-air television network. Within 5 years, TVB became a cultural phenomenon. Families scheduled dinner around its dramas. The streets grew silent when primetime shows began. Through meticulously crafted talent programs, he built Asia's first real celebrity machine, launching careers of Chow Yun-fat, Andy Lau, Tony Leung, Maggie Cheung, and Stephen Chow. Behind the scenes, Run Run Shaw ruled like a monarch. He walked the studio floors daily, known for his immaculate suits and ruthless efficiency. Actors feared disappointing him. His approval could make a career. His disfavor could erase one overnight. Yet to many, he was also a visionary who believed that discipline created legends. His empire wasn't built on luck. It was built on obsession, hierarchy, and control. By the 1980s, Shaw Brothers and TVB had become twin pillars of Asian entertainment. Their productions reached from Singapore to Malaysia, from Taiwan to Japan. At its peak, the Shaw Empire generated hundreds of millions annually, shaping pop culture and even influencing government policy through soft power. Run Run Shaw became a billionaire philanthropist, knighted by Queen Elizabeth II, honored by universities, and regarded as the father of Chinese entertainment. Yet, beneath the glamour, something darker was already growing. The studio's strict contracts, often called slave agreements, trapped stars for years, paying them a fraction of their worth. Talents who resisted found themselves blacklisted. Inside the marble halls of TVB, loyalty wasn't optional. It was demanded. And as Run Run aged into his 90s, cracks began to form in the structure he had so carefully built. The question was no longer whether TVB could dominate, but whether it could survive its own dynasty. By the early 2000s, Run Run Shaw was a century old. a living monument to Hong Kong's golden era. But while the public still revered him as the benevolent patriarch of TVB, behind closed doors, the empire had begun to rot. The man who once ruled every inch of the studio now watched in silence as internal factions formed, alliances shifted, and the dynasty he built started devouring itself. The problem was succession. Run Run had no son to inherit his throne. His biological children showed little interest in the grueling world of television, and that left a vacuum, one that would soon become a battlefield. At the center of this storm stood Mona Fong, Shah's second wife and former nightclub singer. Once seen as a loyal companion, she had quietly become the most powerful woman in Hong Kong television. For decades, she had handled Shah's finances and made key production decisions. Her influence over the aging mogul grew absolute. Insiders whispered that Mona Fong didn't just protect Shah, she controlled him. As Run Run's health declined, Mona began removing longtime executives, replacing them with loyalists who owed their careers to her. Behind the smiling photos of charity galas, a silent coup was taking place. Meanwhile, Virginia Shaw, Run Run's daughter, had her own ambitions. She believed the Shaw name should remain in family hands, not under Mona's. But she was no match for the empire's queen. Employees described the atmosphere inside TVB as a court without a king. Mona ruled with an iron grip, demanding loyalty, silencing dissent, and rewarding obedience. Senior producers who had once thrived under Shah's meritocracy found themselves marginalized. The once creative studio now ran like a bureaucracy, where innovation was stifled by fear. The change was visible on screen. By the late 2000s, TVB dramas began losing their spark. Plots grew repetitive, budgets were slashed, and talented stars fled. Stephen Chow, once a Shaw prodigy, left to form his own studio. Andy Lau, Tony Leung, and Karina Lau followed. Many cited the same reason: TVB had become toxic. Its legendary training programs, once a gateway to fame, now resembled a factory system churning out replaceable faces. Artists spoke of grueling work schedules, unpaid overtime, and abusive management. Behind the decline were deeper structural issues. Mona Fong's TVB had turned into a family business guarded by insiders, not a creative powerhouse. She was fixated on control, not evolution. Her team enforced draconian contracts, locking actors into 7 or even 10-year deals. Anyone who dared negotiate risked being frozen, denied screen time until their fame faded. Whispered blacklists circulated through the industry. The once golden brand now carried a stain, but the real danger came from the outside world. Mainland China's entertainment market was booming. New platforms like Youku, IQIYI, and Tencent Video emerged, offering higher pay and creative freedom. Hong Kong's rigid studio system suddenly looked archaic. Young audiences no longer saw TVB as the dream. They saw it as the past. Still, Mona refused to adapt. Instead, she tightened control, believing loyalty could hold back time. As profits shrank, corporate sharks began circling. Investment firms linked to Beijing's state media took interest in TVB's vast archive and broadcasting licenses. Insiders say this was when Li Ruigang, founder of China Media Capital, began quietly building ties with Shah's circle, a move that would change TVB forever. In the background, Virginia Shaw tried to protect her father's legacy, but lacked both the capital and allies. By 2010, the battle lines were drawn. Mona's camp, backed by investors and loyal executives, versus the old guard still clinging to Shah's principles. Run Shaw, by then 103, could do nothing but watch. Employees described his final visits to the studio as heartbreaking. The once commanding patriarch now pushed through hallways where few dared meet his eyes. In public, TVB still called itself Asia's television leader, but inside, it was an empire without unity, preparing for a fall that no one wanted to admit was coming. When the patriarch finally passed away in 2014, the question was no longer who would inherit the empire. But who would finish dismantling it? When Run Run Shaw passed away in 2014 at the age of 106, the news shook Hong Kong. But what came next shook it even more. The empire he built did not mourn him for long. It began to eat itself alive. Within months, power shifted to a new group of investors led by Charles Chan, Li Ruigang, and China Media Capital, CMC, a media giant with close ties to Beijing's state apparatus. What had once been a family empire was now becoming a corporate chess piece in a much larger game. Officially, the move was called modernization. But for those inside TVB, it was the beginning of the end. The old guard producers were quietly forced out, and the studio's creative freedom was replaced with corporate bureaucracy and political supervision. Scripts began to pass through multiple layers of approval, not for artistic quality, but for political alignment. Words like independence, freedom, and corruption were suddenly forbidden in dialogue. Directors who once made daring, emotional stories were told to stay neutral, a euphemism for don't provoke the mainland. It was no longer about ratings, it was about obedience. In 2015, Mona Fong, who had ruled the empire for decades, retreated from public life, her health rapidly declining. With her gone, TVB descended into open chaos. Internal memos leaked, revealing multi-million-dollar losses and investor panic. The company's market share plunged as mainland streaming platforms surged ahead. Shows once watched by tens of millions now struggled to break even 500,000 views. Audiences complained that TVB dramas had become predictable propaganda, glossy, safe, and lifeless. For many of Hong Kong's once beloved actors, that was the final straw. Sharon Tang, one of TVB's most respected actresses, spoke out publicly about the toxic work culture, accusing the station of systemic disrespect toward artists. Tavia Young, Mioli Wu, and Charmaine Shea followed, leaving one by one. By 2018, a mass exodus had begun. Behind the scenes, producers described morale as a funeral without an end. But the real transformation was happening quietly in the ownership structure. In 2016, Li Ruigang's China Media Capital increased its stake, effectively giving Beijing-linked investors influence over the network's programming. The move coincided with a wave of censorship and editorial alignment across Hong Kong's media industry, and TVB became a symbol of it. Once the voice of Hong Kong's creativity, it was now accused of becoming a mouthpiece for power. Ratings plummeted to historic lows, and the network's newsroom faced boycotts. Advertisers pulled out, saying the channel had lost its credibility. Financially, the empire was collapsing. Between 2017 and 2022, TVB's profits fell by nearly 90%, forcing layoffs, pay cuts, and desperate restructuring. Its massive studio complex in Shung Kwan O, once the pride of Asian television, became a ghost town. Former employees described walking through sound stages, where entire sets had been abandoned mid-production, lights still hanging, scripts left scattered on the floor. And yet, in public, TVB executives continued to insist the company was stronger than ever. They launched flashy reality shows and tried to revive old drama franchises, hoping nostalgia could save them. But it was too late. Younger audiences had already migrated to YouTube, Netflix, and mainland streaming apps. The empire that had once dictated taste now struggled to keep up with algorithms and hashtags. When Mona Fong died in 2017, the last true link to the original Shaw dynasty was gone. Her funeral was eerily quiet, no grand procession, no televised tribute. To many, it felt symbolic, the end of Hong Kong's television royalty. The Shaw family's influence was over, their empire divided among investors who saw only profit where there was once legacy. By 2020, the headlines said it plainly. TVB was dying. The company that built the dreams of millions had become a relic, suffocated by politics, greed, and time. Inside the boardroom, executives fought to stay relevant. Outside, Hong Kong audiences switched off. Not just their televisions, but their faith in what the city's media once represented. The Shaw brothers had built a kingdom of light. But as the final decade unfolded, that light became a flicker. And then, darkness. To understand how TVB truly fell, one must look beyond the studio walls, to the quiet corridors of power and capital in Beijing. After 2014, as Hong Kong's political climate shifted, media ownership became a weapon of influence. The fall of the Shaw dynasty offered a perfect opportunity. The once independent TVB was now an open door for mainland investors seeking to reshape the city's narrative. Among them was Li Ruigang, often called China's Rupert Murdoch, a man with deep ties to state propaganda networks and corporate elites. Through his conglomerate, China Media Capital, CMC, Li strategically bought into Hong Kong's most influential media assets, including TVB, under the banner of modernization and regional cooperation. But insiders knew the truth. This was a soft takeover. Under new ownership, the tone of TVB changed almost overnight. News segments began echoing mainland narratives, avoiding sensitive topics like protests or censorship. Scripts that once depicted gritty, human stories about justice or corruption were quietly shelved. A senior screenwriter later revealed that entire storylines had been rewritten because they were too sympathetic to the wrong side. Production notes began including phrases like "maintain harmony" and "avoid misinterpretation of authority." What was once the voice of Hong Kong had become an echo chamber for a single narrative. For many creatives, this transformation felt like cultural death. Writers, producers, and actors who had spent decades crafting Hong Kong's identity saw their art reduced to political compliance. One veteran director described it bitterly. "We used to make stories that moved people. Now we make content that moves no one, except those in power." Meanwhile, CMC and other investors from mainland China flooded TVB with capital, not to revive its creativity, but to control its direction. Financially, the new system created strange contradictions. While TVB received mainland investment, its local revenues continued to collapse. The company expanded partnerships with Tencent and Youku, but these deals mainly benefited streaming rights in China, not Hong Kong. Local staff faced pay cuts, while executives boasted of strategic synergy. Viewers noticed the hypocrisy, and so did advertisers. Trust in TVB evaporated. To many Hong Kongers, the network that once reflected their city had now become a foreign instrument wearing a familiar face. Meanwhile, younger generations simply walked away. By the early 2020s, most viewers under 30 no longer watched TVB at all. They turned to YouTube, Netflix, or independent creators who spoke more honestly. TVB's ratings fell below 1% for some primetime slots, an unthinkable statistic for what was once Asia's entertainment capital. But even as the brand faded, its symbolism grew. To some, TVB's decline represented the end of Hong Kong's golden era, a time when the city could shape its own voice, culture, and identity. The Shaw family's empire had been more than a business. It was a reflection of Hong Kong's freedom to dream. Now, with its soul traded for survival, that dream had been dismantled, quietly, strategically, and completely. Behind every press release about restructuring and regional cooperation, there was a deeper truth. TVB didn't just fall because of bad business. It fell because power demanded it. By the mid-2020s, the Shaw name, once synonymous with prestige and power, had almost vanished from Hong Kong's skyline. The run-run Shaw empire, which had shaped generations, was now little more than a memory. The Shaw family itself had splintered. Properties were sold, charities restructured, and foundations once led by Sir Run-Run were quietly absorbed by new trustees. The empire that had once commanded Asia's cultural throne had become a fractured legacy, divided among business partners and forgotten heirs. When Mona Fong passed away in 2017, she left no direct successor, no child to carry the family vision. In her absence, the company's remaining shares were diluted, sold off to corporate investors, and TVB, the dynasty's crown jewel, became a soulless shell of its former self. Even the Shaw Brothers Studio brand, resurrected briefly for streaming ventures, felt hollow. Gone were the days of grand epics and disciplined artistry. The new productions relied on nostalgia, remakes of classics, digital cameos of long-dead stars, but lacked the passion that once defined the Shaw era. Meanwhile, Virginia Shaw, Run Run's daughter, retreated into private life, far from the limelight. She watched from a distance as her father's name was gradually replaced by new corporate logos. The Shaw family's influence, once political and cultural, was reduced to plaques in museums and dedications on hospital wings. Reminders of philanthropy, not of power. For those who had grown up during TVB's golden years, this felt like the end of Hong Kong's voice. Former employees spoke with bitterness and grief. They recalled how the Shaw brothers had once stood for opportunity, a place where a street performer could become a star, where Hong Kong exported dreams to the world. That spirit was gone. Now, productions were managed by mainland investors who saw culture as a tool, not an art. In interviews, old TVB staff used a single word to describe what was lost: freedom. Financially, the empire's decay mirrored its emotional collapse. TVB's market value dropped by nearly 90% from its peak, and even attempts to digitize its archives couldn't stop the bleeding. The once vibrant Clearwater Bay studio, a symbol of creative power, now sits partially empty, its massive sound stages rented out for corporate events and low-budget reality shows. Outside, a rusted sign still reads, Shaw Movie Town. Tourists take photos, not out of admiration, but nostalgia. Yet the influence of Run Run Shaw still lingers like a ghost across Asia's film industry. Many of the region's greatest directors, John Woo, Tsui Hark, Ang Lee, began under his system, trained in the discipline that made Hong Kong cinema world-class. The empire may be gone, but its DNA runs through the artistry of an entire generation. In that sense, Shaw's true inheritance wasn't the company. It was the standard he set. Still, one haunting question remains. Was the downfall inevitable or orchestrated? Some believe the Shaw dynasty simply failed to adapt to technology and new media. Others whisper that it was systematically dismantled, its assets absorbed by larger political and financial powers who sought to erase Hong Kong's independence, one industry at a time. Whatever the truth, the result is the same. The kingdom of light that once illuminated Asia now lies in shadow. Walk past the old TVB headquarters today, and you can still see the faint outline of its once iconic logo. The green, red, and blue orbit that once glowed across millions of television screens. It hangs there like a relic, faded but unforgotten. For half a century, that symbol represented Hong Kong's creative spirit, its freedom to dream, to laugh, to question. But now, it stands as a monument to what was lost. An empire that burned too brightly and too long. The Shaw dynasty didn't fall overnight. It eroded, piece by piece, deal by deal, silence by silence. Power changed hands quietly. Creativity gave way to control, and the empire built on storytelling became a cautionary tale itself. For some, it was just business, the natural end of an outdated model. But for others, it was something far greater, the death of Hong Kong's cultural independence. And yet, legends never truly die. In every Hong Kong film that dares to challenge, in every actor who still believes in authenticity over obedience, there's a trace of Run Run Shaw's legacy, the stubborn belief that art can outlive politics. His empire may have been dismantled, but his shadow remains, flickering like an old TV signal trying to break through the static. Because even when the dynasty falls, the story never ends.